But selfishly, like I told you earlier, Deep Nutrition is one of my absolute favorite books. It's one that I have referred back to many, many times for lots of different things. And I didn't get to ask you this last time. What kind of led to your writing of that book? Like you have a lot of concepts in that book that really nobody was talking about at the time. Can you tell us how you got from, your training at Cornell to then, maybe changing your mind about a few things and writing the book Deep Nutrition?
Yeah, so I had gone to Cornell because I wanted to be a molecular biologist and genetic engineer because I wanted to get to actually solving the problems. The world's problems at that time were accumulating plastics already. This was in the 1980s. And I wanted to design bacteria that could chew up plastic and digest it. And I realized that genetic engineering was really in its infancy, and doing something like that was going to take decades, and I couldn't wait. But that training in understanding plastics and how they're made, so that we can understand how to break them down, turned out to be really useful in understanding what vegetable oils do in our body. And when I didn't make that kind of connection until I had to because I got sick, right? So I dropped out of Cornell PhD program. I went to medical school, and there I was hoping to get to the root causes of selfishly my like sports injuries, right? Because I was an athlete and I kept getting tendonitis and bursitis and hip problems, and every kind of joint was seemed to like break down for me, and I figured there's something wrong with me, and I wanted to understand what it was, but I did not learn anything like that in medical school. So I was kind of a little disappointed, a little bit of a seeker, and then when I got sick myself, it was really a golden opportunity to fill that gap that had been in my heart all along as a doctor, where I didn't really feel like I was helping my patients. And the connection with plastic was actually really important, because it turns out vegetable oils can polymerize in our cell membranes the same way that plastic would polymerize, on your floor if you're trying to protect it from water. So like that realization was so profound to me that I was inspired to do more and more research, and I just ended up I was going to write this little teeny pamphlet for my patients about here's what vegetable oils are, here's to avoid them, and also sugar's really bad for you too. It was gonna just be for my patients, but I found the thing so fascinating that I just kept digging. And yeah, and really the biggest, hugest revelation that I don't even mention in the book, so this is like inside knowledge, is that really nothing in our bodies, nothing about our health is random. Nothing about our health is random. And that was a big revelation as I started doing all the research, because in medical school, we don't go past like, oh, just bad luck or, family history, which is also this another, just it's really another term for bad luck, right? You had the wrong parents, right? So, so I was able to see that nothing was by accident, and that nutrition had an influence on every medical condition that you could possibly name.
Wow. That's incredible. It's really challenging to go back and imagine deep nutrition as a little pamphlet. It's certainly not much of a little pamphlet for what it grew into. If somebody is listening and not watching, you see deep nutrition behind me, and it's about an inch and a half thick, and it's written in very small font. You write in that book about even the connection between not only our physical health but also as aesthetically, like kind of how we look and symmetry and all those things. To your knowledge, are you the only person that had made those kinds of connections?
I am the second.
Okay.
The first is Dr. Weston Price. And actually, there were other people, working when Dr. Weston Price was working. So who's Dr. Weston Price? He is a dentist that worked at the early 1900s, like 1910, 1920, 1930, and his book came out in the late 1930s, early 1940s. And he said that our diet changes the way we look. And he was not the only person, but that was saying similar things, but he was the most clear about the link between diet and how we grow, and that basically it's not just for looks, it's about health. So he linked the same three things that I link, which is diet, health, and physical appearance. And so that also, that was one of those things that was like, wow, this is so cool. There's no way I could not leave this in a, there's no way I could have a book and not include this because like I said, I don't think anyone else has seriously written new information about that. Like people have regurgitated what Price said, but I built on it because there was a new field coming out of epigenetics. And as a former geneticist, I was like, this was another marriage of like my previous to medical school life and this new world of information that my eyes had opened up to after I was injured and just looking for how to get better myself.
Got it. Yeah. Building upon it is a good way to say it. Expounding his work was so incredible. And his timing couldn't have been more perfect, where you have this like confluence at the dates that you said, the 1920s, 1930s. You have the invention of the camera. It's a little bit more practical to take around with him. And we also have a lot of indigenous tribes that we might not even have access to today because so many of our, civilized practices have bled down into all of those different cultures.
Exactly. And what he did with that camera and also airplanes, right? So you could travel around the world. And he took a huge camera with him over mountaintops and to isolated communities where they had respected their ancestral traditions and sustained them out of necessity. But also, it wasn't just necessity. And he makes that clear too, in a way that really resonated with me is that these people that were, farming the way they had farmed for hundreds of years, just taking the bare minimum of what was beneficial from modern society, like maybe, using like metal instead of rocks and stuff like that. So those cultures, they loved what they were doing. They thought what they were doing was better than the way things were being done in the cities, where sometimes people would leave their communities and then come back because they agreed life was better. And it was hard work, yes, but it was rewarding. And it rewarded you with health for yourself and health for your children, which
Yeah,
is like
that's
the biggest reward you can actually like ever have in life, I think, is our, really, as far as biology is concerned, our purpose is to have children.